Hey everyone, welcome to the Pod and the Pendulum. We have a little bonus show for you this week. We're actually going to, push back our Phantasm Oblivion show. And I'd like to say it's because we're doing this show or this mini episode right now, but it's really because I'm like super lazy and haven't done my notes or contacted the guests about when we're going to record. And I'm like, oh shit, we're supposed to record this weekend and I have nothing. I'm your host, Mike Snoonian, and we are going to do, today, very luckily, very happily, the full trailer for Scream 6 dropped earlier today. And because it's my favorite franchise, my favorite series of movies, it's the series that started this little show, I thought I'd gather some friends and talk about this for a little time today. So I am not here alone. Just like there's always more than one ghost face, we have more than one co-host today. And all of us are murderers. Up first, from the site, We Who Walk Here, she is taking a break from prepping for her Sundance coverage. We have the lovely Jessica Scott. Jessica, how are we?
I am very excited to be here and very excited to talk about this trailer.
Excellent. We're happy to have you here. And we have, after a long break, we have not heard from this gentleman in quite a while. He is in his new digs. He is having some Marlot. He is our friend, good old friend Chewy. Stephen Foxworthy, how are we?
Doing great, Mike. It is pronounced Malort.
Oh, okay. For you fancy folks.
Right.
It is Marla. For, I guess, the low-class people like me, it is.
I
can't
Merlot is a mispronunciation of Merlot.
It is a amalgamation of Merlin and Camelot, basically. It's when Merlin took shit over is how I'm going to choose to imagine that. Look, longtime listeners, you know that I cannot pronounce words, okay? It is, which is a great thing when you make a living talking. So fantastic. But moving on, let's talk about this trailer. Before we dive into the nitty gritty details, let's ask, how excited are each of you for Scream 6?
I am very excited. I was not a huge fan of Five Cream. So I've got it ranked last in my series ranking, even though I'm a huge Scream fan. So I feel like this is going to be a lot better for me personally. I'm very excited about moving locations to New York, moving out of Woodsboro. I'm just, the return of Kirby. I'm very excited.
What was it about Scream 5 that didn't work for you? Because I think overall, like, it was a fairly solid, like, I think most people really enjoyed it, but for the folks that didn't like it, it just didn't hit. What about it didn't hit for you?
I felt like it wasn't as sharp as previous entries. I didn't think it conveyed everything it was trying to convey about toxic fandom as cleverly as the other films tackled different, aspects of the genre. Dewey dying kind of hit me hard. I am not a huge fan of Sam. I love Jenna Ortega, but I'm not as big a fan of her older sister in the film. So just overall, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I still liked it, but it wasn't my favorite in the series by any stretch.
Yeah, and my take on Scream is like there's no bad entries. Like my least favorite is 3.
Same.
And even that one, like I would watch that over a lot of other movies. It's still like a really fun Scooby-Doo style slasher. So, but what do you think? You mentioned like the move of location, the return of Kirby. You just have like a better feeling overall heading into this one.
Yeah, this one, it feels less predictable. Not that the first one was predictable, or the fifth one was predictable, but it feels like things have changed. I know I sound like I'm buying into the hype, like everything changes in this installment. I'm believing everything the trailer is telling me.
It's a musical.
Yeah. But it does feel like the rules have changed, and it feels like I have less of an idea of what's happening, which is why all my notes for this show are just questions. Because
Okay.
all I have are questions about this.
Do you think Scream 6, well, there is no Rocky. Oh, there's Rocky Balboa. I'll say, what was better, Scream 5 or Rocky 5?
Okay, don't kick me off the show, but I've never seen a single Rocky movie.
That just means you have some great movies to look forward to one
There
day.
you go. There
And
That's
you go.
all that
he's
means.
jealous of your opportunity to watch those for the first time.
You can skip Rocky 5.
Okay.
You can. It's very
Definitely
skippable.
skip Rocky 5.
Unless you're just a completist, in which case, grain of salt. But yeah.
You can skip to the fight to the end of Rocky 2. You can cry like a baby at the end of Rocky, like I always do.
Fair.
Always, always, always.
That's how
Anyway.
you prove you're human and not a robot, is if you cry at
Really,
the end of
it
Rocky.
is. And Rocky 3 is just pure fun. It's the queer Rocky, I would say.
Ooh.
Rocky 3 is the queer Rocky.
And then
Very
Rocky
exciting.
4 is the reason we know who won the Cold War.
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. Can't wait to find out because I've been wondering.
These days it can be a bit of a question, but thank God Sylvester Stallone directed Rocky 4 is what I say.
Yeah.
And there's the director's cut of Rocky 4, which is a completely different movie. It's like
I haven't
even
seen that.
It's not even like added scenes. It's like a completely different movie. It's bizarre.
How does it? Wait, does he still have the robot wife though? Does Paulie
No.
still?
What?
Paulie doesn't have the robot wife?
The robot is excised from the director's cut of.
Is Paulie just not in the movie then?
Paulie's in the movie.
Okay, because that's pretty much all Paulie does in 4.
He goes to the Siberian and helps train.
Okay.
He does and no one likes Paulie.
I think I just broke Jessica's brain.
I
It
know.
only took them 4 entries to get to Robot Wife. I am very impressed. Very impressed.
It's great. And he beats
Well, I mean, this is
communism.
in fairness, this is not a horror franchise, so they're not rushing to get to that point.
Yeah, it's not a. Yeah, it's not a race.
I mean, it takes its time. It luxuriates in the first 3 movies, and then it decides to just amp everything up to 11.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, Steven, the Scream 6, how hyped are you for this?
That's a complicated question. Scream is probably my favorite of the slasher franchises, and one of my top 3 favorite horror franchises of all time. Like you, I do not think there's a bad entry in the franchise. I'm actually rewatching them with my girlfriend right now. We just finished Scream 3 last night. That movie just gets a little better in my mind every time I watch it, and it's my least favorite in the franchise. So, I have a blast with this franchise. I love it to death. 5 ranks squarely in the middle for me, but the fact that we're doing this without Neve Campbell gives me some pause. The fact that, Sydney has been the mainstay in this franchise. That's actually the thing I love most about this franchise, is that it focuses not so much on the killer, like so many other slasher franchises, but on the victims, on the people that he or she has affected. So the notion that we're doing this without Sydney feels like we're missing something pretty important in this movie. So that's giving me a little pause. And also, and I think Brian Kuiper is the great Brian Kuiper is the one who said this before, but Scream is at its best when it's commenting on something within the genre. And I think the best entries in the genre, 1, 4, and 5, respectively, for me, are the ones that are doing the best job of commenting on something within the genre, be it what a slasher movie is at its very core, the reboot remake culture of the early 2000s, or in the case of 5 Cream, toxic fandom and the rebootquel, which again, your mileage may vary on how well it does that. I thought it did a pretty good job. But that's me. But I think 2 and 3 tend to be the weaker ones, just because I don't think their commentaries are as incisive. And I think when you start putting these out quickly, you quickly run out of things to comment on, which is why Scream 3 is just a comment on the Scream franchise. Like, hey, isn't it wild that in just like 5 years, we've become the predominant voice of the horror genre? Let's talk about that, I guess. So, which is why it's the last one on my list, is because it really doesn't feel like it has that much to say.
Well, 3 also suffered from the fact that they had to rewrite the whole script because it was
3 weeks before filming.
Right.
Yeah.
So it becomes much less about what they originally planned and becomes what I would say like a victory lap. Like it's almost like I just did a rewatch of all of Parks and Rec because that's one of my comfort
Mm-hmm.
TV shows. And like the
That's a great
last
one.
season of Parks and Rec is a victory lap for that
100%.
episode, especially the finale. And I love it. I love that. See, it's probably the season I would rewatch the second most. For all those warm and fuzzies. And that's what 3 is. Like, look at like what this little franchise did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very fun, silly Scooby-Doo without like the dog
It is
type of movie.
100%.
It's a lot of fun.
It's like the Scooby-Doo mysteries, like the hour-long episodes where they'd have a special guest every week, and the special guest is like
Batman and Robin.
Yeah, right. But in Scream 3, it's Parker Posey and Carrie Fisher and Lance Henriksen and Roger Corman and all the like Jay and Silent Bob, all the different cameos that you get from everybody in Scream 3. Like that's kind of the special guest in that very special Scooby-Doo episode. Like it definitely, again, as someone who I just finished watching it last night, it definitely feels that way. I also think the killer is probably the weakest in 3, but
agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
I do like how subversive it is that it's poking fun. Well, not poking fun because it's more serious than that, but it's taking a stab at, no pun intended, Harvey Weinstein within his own company, which I really appreciate about it.
Legitimately the most audacious thing about it. And I can't watch that movie without thinking about that now. And it's honestly the reason why Scream 3, like, it probably is as high in my estimation as it is, because as a film overall, like it's got its problems, but again, there's not a bad entry in this franchise for one reason or another. And I love the fact that you cast Lance Henriksen as Harvey Weinstein for a movie that's got his name as the producer at the end of the film. Like that's fucking incredible. And bravo Wes Craven for pulling that off. Seriously.
So let's tackle I think you both touched on it, Stephen, you in particular. No Neve Campbell that we know of in this movie, that she stepped away from the project after getting what she perceived as a lowball offer from the producers, and probably rightfully so. I mean, like, meaning that she rightfully felt like lowballed, because I would say Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott is more important to the Scream franchise than Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode is to the Halloween franchise. I don't know if that's a super controversial take, but there are plenty of great Halloween sequels where Laurie is not involved in any way, shape, or form, or isn't the focus. Like, you look at Halloween 2, and Laurie has like very little to do in that movie but lie in a hospital bed. It's much more of a Loomis movie. She's not in 4, 5, or 6. She's not in 3. We all love Halloween 3, right? And Halloween 4 is kind of getting more of its due in the past few years. You could argue she's like the weakest part of Halloween Kills. Again, sidelined to the bed. Long story short, like, I think like Neve Campbell is Sidney Prescott is like the definitive, like the best of the final girls. And you're right, the movies are much more about her than they are Ghostface. That said, Scream 5 was a great exit point for Neve Campbell, and I think for Courtney Cox as well. I'd be happy if there was no Courtney Cox in this movie. I'm not upset that Sydney's not in it, because my worry now is every time Sidney would return, the temptation to kill her off is going to be greater and greater. And I don't want that end for Sidney Prescott. Just could do without it. I joked about this in the run up to Scream 5. The best use of Sidney in any of these movies going forward is an opening scene where she gets a call like, shit's going down in Woodsboro again. And she's like, not my problem. Shuts the phone off, grabs a glass of wine, and reads her book on her front porch, and then like smash cut to the Scream title card at that point. Okay,
I kind of love that. I'm not gonna lie. Like, one of my favorite parts of Scream 3 is that ending where the doors open and she just doesn't care. Like, I love that for her.
Perfect ending to that trilogy of movies.
Absolutely.
So I don't like that she's not in the movie because the producers like didn't value her worth to the series. That is what's upsetting. And good for Nev Campbell for saying, nope, I can do other things. Like I'm not going to take a low ball offer. Good for her.
Seriously.
But let's get into the trailer itself. Let's get into this opening. And you know what? As a therapist, I ask a lot of questions. So Jessica, you have all the questions. What's the first thing that comes to mind when what's your first one?
Well, it's always someone you know, right? Based on the killer's mask, which seems to have been taken from an evidence locker, like that's an old used Ghostface mask, and the shrine with all of the clothes and pieces from the crime scenes. I was wondering if our killer is someone related to law enforcement, like somebody related to Deputy Judy or related to Dewey somehow, some cousin of Tatum's that we don't know about. I thought it was someone related to law enforcement was my first question, because this is clearly someone with a lot more access than previous ghost faces.
Do you think I was going to say, do you think it might be someone we've already seen in these movies, or a character that is here before not known to us?
I have two different theories. One of them is completely off the wall and is never going to happen, and the other one is that this is someone we don't know about. Like, we've never met this person, but they are related to someone that we've met, because that seems to be the way these things go, obviously, with previous killers. So I don't think it's someone we've seen before, though I do think that there's one silly fan service suggestion.
Say it.
Okay, so did you notice the last 2 or 3 seconds of the trailer, there's a sound. There's a Jason sound.
I did not.
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was just, Jason Takes Manhattan because they're on the subway, or...
There is someone with a Jason mask on that subway train,
True.
too.
But also, Friday the 13th Part 6 is Jason Lives, and I thought, what if they brought back Stu? Because everybody has this theory that Stu never really died, and I thought, what if Stu is back as the killer? Because he's this big, strong guy. Like, he's shooting a shotgun single-handed. That takes a lot of strength. Like, this big, strong guy with a lot of access, a lot of knowledge, and Stu Lives is Scream 6. That was my weird fan theory that I absolutely do not believe is true.
I don't want it to be true. But I mean, after I watched the trailer a couple times, I did a deep dive on YouTube, and there are a lot of people out there who seem to really want that to be true. That was apparently the original plan for Scream 3. But Kevin Williamson is at this point pretty much all but confirmed that Stu is dead and gone, and we shouldn't look forward to seeing him. You mentioned law enforcement, though, and guess who's being shown in this series to now be a member of law enforcement in New York City? Our friend Kirby Reed is a cop now. So whether she's with the NYPD or the FBI, we don't really know at this point, but she's a cop. So, if it's someone attached with law enforcement, I mean, first time I saw Scream 4, Kirby seemed pretty high on my list of potential suspects right up until the part where she got stabbed. So, I mean, could this be a case of a final girl taking matters into her own hands? Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's far more likely than my silly Stu theory.
But again, you're not alone in the Stu theory. Like, the Stu theory is making its rounds on the internet right now, and they're basically two camps. There's the it's Stu and no way it's Stu camps, and I tend to fall in the no way it's Stu camp. If it's Stu, my eyes will just fall out of my head from all the rolling. I will not care for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't care for it. I think it's a possibility, but because it's so popular as a fan theory, I discount it, but so is Kirby Lives. Kirby's still alive, and that was something that the fans were clamoring for, and now she's back. So I don't think we can discount fan service entirely, but I agree with you that I don't think Stu is coming back.
There's also the subway poster. Like, Kirby's stop has an X, closed for repairs, but Stu's has this weird little red spot on it. Like, maybe there's something else going on there that a lot of people have kind of, pointed to that and say, oh, well, see, Stu's still around, Stu's still alive. And I'm like, why would you put that on your poster, though? Like, why would you spell that out? I'm pretty sure that's just there to get the fans talking and not an actual thing that they're planning. At least I hope not an actual thing they're planning on doing with this movie. Because,
counterpoint. I want the Stu to be a live thing to happen so badly that I will run around the theater and high five everybody in every single row because I am here for the Lillard Sans.
No,
Okay, it's
look,
all.
no. That would be the one thing that would make it worth it.
Mhm.
Like, I loves me some Matthew Lillard. Like, and he has at this point more than proven himself. Like, I would love to see Matthew Lillard in a
Mhm.
movie like this, but in the immortal words of Switch from The Matrix, not like this. Not like
What
this.
if it's Stu's
Twin
unknown
brother?
twin brother that was, Lou
Mocker.
and he's completely different in every facet in terms of his mannerisms, but just give it to me. Just give me.
Hook it to my veins.
I would be because there was so much talk before the last Scream, like of revisiting the Scream 3 that never was, and this
Right.
idea that, like he was running from prison, he was kind of running this like Woodsboro style cult and there was so much talk of it. I'm like, they have to be bringing Stu back. And then when it just having it take place in his old home, I would be here for it because it would be, I guess it wouldn't be odd to have like because the last movie, the killers are brand new characters that are introduced. It just feels like it's, I don't know. It feels like this is going to act as that real bridge between the legacy cast and the new cast, and maybe this will be the movie that severs the legacy cast once and for all. 'Cause I am fully on board with more of these movies with just this new cast of like Jenny Ortega and Melissa Barrera, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding. I am totally fine with carrying the movies forward with this crew. Like I said, I don't need Nev Campbell in this movie to make it a Scream movie. Controversial opinion, Gail is kind of one of my least favorite characters in all of these movies. I love her in the first couple, but I kind of think that the character by Scream 4, it's like, okay, you're here just because Wes Craven wants you here at this point, and he's not doing this movie without getting everyone back together. But she didn't really add anything to Scream 4. She didn't really add anything to Scream 5. I would have been fine excising her from the movie completely.
I'm not gonna lie, with the exception of Dewey, did any of the legacy characters add much to Scream 5?
I thought Nev Campbell was a great bridge in the role that yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
It's Arquette's movie, but
it is.
yeah.
And I mean, I knew going in that he was probably going to die just
Mhm.
because of the trailers and the way that they framed certain information. I realized I never saw the three legacy characters on screen at the same time.
Mhm.
You think you would have at least shot an insert with the three of them together just to throw people off, but no.
Mhm.
Like, you just see like Sydney and Gail together, and then Dewey by himself a bunch, and you're just like, well, gee, what would get the two of them back to Woodsboro?
Mhm.
I
We're
wonder.
going to do 90 minutes on this trailer, aren't we?
Probably.
I mean, the way we're going
I know.
and the way that we are as
Yes.
just, people who like to talk about things, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Jessica, you mentioned like the weathered look of the mask. And I immediately got a call back to Halloween 2018 and was wondering is this the original mask? Like, is that why this looks so weathered and worn? Like, are we to assume that this is like the original mask from the first Woodsboro murders? Is it one Stu wore or Billy wore? And that's why it has that beaten down look, which further makes you wonder, like, is this supposed to be Stu or his unknown twin brother Lou?
Yeah, and that was my assumption, that it's the original, one of the original masks from the first film. And again, all this access, like the shrine that everybody has been, freeze framing on, like they're watching an episode of Lost or something. And the
Wouldn't know
footage,
anything about that.
the footage that plays in the background, it doesn't look like it's from a stab movie. It looks like it might be the footage that they shot in Scream 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like not the exact Jill's camera phone shot, but that kind of style. So again, I keep going back to law enforcement, that there's no other way you would have this much access. Like,
Sure.
This is somebody with money, because
Yes.
look at that huge New York loft where they've got their shrine set up. But I don't think this is just like some crazy old collector who's been bribing people. Like, I feel like this is a law enforcement angle.
Another thing that I've heard, another theory that I've heard with regard to all of these things being on display, is that this is not a shrine so much as it is like there's an actual like museum exhibit in New York that is exhibiting like, and maybe this film is like interrogating our cultural obsession with true crime, maybe a little bit. And so like there's like, this is an actual museum exhibit, and they've got the 9 Ghostface cloaks there as and this is essentially like a Ghostface exhibit in the same way that you might see an exhibit for any number of sordid people throughout our nation's history. Now, again, that's a theory that I've heard. I don't know how accurate that is, whether it's a shrine or whether it's something else. Who's to say? Not me. I don't know, but
I would love that, because the fascination with true crime at the expense of victims and victims' families, as we've seen with the recent talk about the Dahmer show, like holding up these serial killers at the expense of these people who actually were tortured and killed, and their families who are surviving and having to see people worship these killers instead of honoring their deceased family members. I would love it if that's what that movie was about.
And I think that would be true to the spirit of the franchise up to this point, which again has historically always been about the victims of these tragedies as opposed to the killers themselves, rather than, these aren't just teenagers to be picked off one by one. These are actual human beings that we've grown to care about. Like, I care about Sidney Prescott. I, cared about Dewey Riley when he passed away, and I will care about Gail Weathers if something should happen to her in this next film. Like we've grown accustomed to these characters. We've gotten to know them, and in a way that characters in other slasher franchises are not able to be known if they're not the titular killer. So I think that's something this franchise has always done really well. And if that's where this is going, then I'm totally on board, because it seems of a piece with what this franchise has been historically.
Yeah, I think that's something Scream 2 does really well. I know you're not a huge fan of it, but especially that opening scene with Maureen.
That opening scene is incredible. Yeah.
That opening scene is a great short film in and of itself. But like all these people with these glow in the dark knives stabbing in the air and cheering as Maureen dies. I mean, that's a perfect example of true crime, and, an indictment of, no offense to anybody out there, I swear to you, but like fan cams of Billy and Stu. You know what I mean? Like, adoring these killers at the expense of the victims.
Right.
And it would be interesting to interrogate that overlap between true crime and horror, because I do feel for persons that aren't necessarily fans of horror, there's an assumption that there's a huge overlap between the two fandoms. And what I have found in reality, there's a pretty big divide between fans that are obsessive about true horror and fans or fans that are obsessive about true crime and fans that are obsessive about horror. I find that there are two different camps. It's fine. Like for horror, it's mostly about a catharsis of like being able to kind of interrogate our fears, to be able to examine our own anxieties in a safe place where you can like pause a movie and know this isn't real, and then kind of come back to it. Where true crime is trying to tap into that, especially for unsolved cases, trying to tap into that like Sherlock Holmes that lives in all of us. And there's like a new documentary on Hulu now that talks specifically about like the internet sleuthing that goes on, where there's this real obsession with being the one to kind of crack the case. And it would be interesting to see if this movie, I don't think that it's going to, but I could be wrong, if that's what the hook is going to be this time, because there's going to be some sort of hook. So,
If
Jen, what
that's the
was.
case, some character has got to be a true crime podcaster, because honestly, that's the way so much of this has kind of seeped into the zeitgeist, is stuff like Serial and My Favorite Murder and you know, these podcasts that kind of, and My Favorite Murder is kind of its own separate thing, but like,
Mhm.
you know, these podcasts that kind of obsess over these unsolved cases that kind of like, and try to, you know, solve these things and right these injustices. Like that's, I mean, if that is the direction they go, and there's not a character who's just an obnoxious podcaster, I'll be very upset.
Do you think they would be more or less obnoxious than the Halloween podcasters from?
I mean, can anyone be more obnoxious than the Halloween podcasters?
No.
I didn't mind them that much.
Maybe the podcast character from Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I haven't seen that still.
Oh, I mean, my disenfranchised co-host Brett Wright would probably disagree with you, but I don't think you're missing much.
Okay, excellent. Jess, next question you have.
Let me see. Oh, just I wanted to do a shout out to Poltergeist and Paramours, because she did a run of Tatum's skirt, and the film actually ordered a bunch from her and used it in that image, which I now am kicking myself for not realizing is probably a museum. But I just wanted to do a shout out to Poltergeist and Paramours, because I also have that skirt and I feel very fancy now. So
Excellent.
I got the Fight Like a Final Girl shirt that she put out, and mine is the one with Sydney on it, because Sydney is my platonic ideal of what a final girl is. Like she is my number one. So absolutely.
Yeah, I got the Texas Chainsaw Sally one from Anna.
That tracks. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's awesome.
I do have another question though.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we think the guy in Gail's apartment is who gets got right before she's attacked? She's got a picture of herself with somebody, but it's giving platonic vibes to me instead of romantic vibes. I'm very curious about that. This is just me being nosy about Gail's life.
I just think he's the rando. Like, I don't think we're going to get to know him at all. It's probably, they were divorced in part 5, her and Dewey, so she's already
and
divorced.
In real life as well at that point.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he went on to remarry someone who looks just like her, which is, yeah. She has a type. It's all right. Highly recommend You Can't Kill David Arquette, the documentary about his return to pro wrestling, where he did hardcore death matches, bloodier than anything you'll see in any slasher movie. Yeah,
where is this streaming? I need to watch this like
on
now.
Hulu. I'm pretty sure it's on Hulu. But
all right, it has been great talking to you guys. I'm gonna peace out right now to go watch it. No,
it's a great documentary. I don't know if you're going to get to know him. I think it's a great shot. Like, that was, to me, the standout shot in the trailer, where he is I'm a sucker for that thing, like things that are in the background when you're focused solely on the foreground,
and it's completely blurred. Like if you're not paying attention to it, you don't see it. Like it's obscured, and I that makes me wonder: is that something they obscured for the trailer, or is that actually going to be that obscured in the film too? Right. Like, you kind of like, are we supposed to know who this is? Like, there was a part of me asking, like, is that Dermot Mulroney's character? Like, are they a thing? And that's why it's kind of blurred out, is because they don't want us to know that that's how Dermot Mulroney eats it. The fact that Dermot Mulroney's in this, first of all, I love saying Dermot Mulroney. He's just got one of those all-time great names to say. But I saw him on the poster. Like, there were 3 names that when I saw the poster, I was like, Dermot Mulroney, fuck yes. Tony Revolori, fuck yes. Samara Weaving, fuck yes.
She doesn't even have a name in this movie, by the way. Samara Weaving. I get the feeling that may be your opening kill.
I have a feeling as well. I mean, she knows the Radio Silence guys because of Ready or Not, which again, Chef's Kiss, such a great movie, Ready or Not. Like, I want that to be a franchise. I don't know how you could make that a franchise, but I want it to be one. I want more movies where you get Samara Weaving having to run from people trying to kill her. That sounds amazing to me. But yeah,
She's
I
married 8 times.
and by the fourth one, she's like, God, this again.
Well, just people start suspecting, like, are you like a Black Widow? It's like when you watch my
Maybe
wife
that's
and
the fourth movie. Or no, you get a crossover with Ready or Not and Knives Out, and Benoit Blanc investigates her for all the dead
beautiful.
husbands.
Well, we just watched a Murder, She Wrote episode where someone raised the possibility to Jessica Fletcher, like, look, last year your nephew was arrested on suspicion of murder. The year before that, your niece. The year before that, another niece. But they were all cleared. And she's like, is there people just end up dead around you all the time? It's like, thank God. It took 4 seasons, but finally someone is speaking truth to power against
someone here
Jessica
is able to
Fletcher.
read the signs on the wall and
Who,
make a dramatic correct assumption.
like, and as someone who deals with people that deal with trauma all day, I have people that, like, my middle school teacher was mean to me and I never got over it. I'm like, Jessica Fletcher, I'm only 4 seasons in. She has seen about 80 dead bodies in the span of like 3 years. Like, people that she was friends with, like people she was close to.
Cabot's Cove, not a big city.
No,
like
Cabot's Cove was a tiny little
town. By the end of that series, that entire town has been murdered.
Yes, they've been replaced.
Exactly.
She is shaking off so much death, so much murder, like a champ. I mean, there is just like, she must be disassociating to be able to shake off that much. My God.
It was also the 80s, Mike. Trauma didn't exist for television characters in the 80s.
No. That's true. So you see, you have like Clu Gulager like pops up in 6 different episodes. Different character every time.
Every time.
Awesome, and each and every one of them, he's fucking fantastic.
I love that. Oh my God, that's incredible.
My first note here is on the bodega, and it's a larger note, like how they're using New York, and what I like is it is ignoring the flashpoints. It's ignoring the tourists. Like, this movie would suck if it was like Ghostface is running around Yankee Stadium.
Right.
You know, that would not be fun. Or like the end of the movie is like Kirby dangling from the Statue of Liberty is like Ghostface slashers that are, then you're like, okay, this is a bit, now we've jumped the shark. But the fact that it's like this little bodega and the subway, that these are the, in what if that is like a museum or a shrine, like that is the kind of like warehouse space you could see, like this is the Woodsboro murder shrine and it's like the exclusive night spot in New York City. Like that I could see being an excellent use of New York as a location and feeling fresh.
Absolutely. And I love the brief like wall art that we see. It doesn't look like standard graffiti. That's, what's your favorite scary movie with Ghostface on the wall? It does look like an entrance to a nightclub. So I think that's a good call, that it's a club or a museum or something like that, as opposed to like a lair.
Right.
Which is what I foolishly was assuming from the trailer.
Same here too. I'm like, oh, it's the evil lair, but it's much more likely that it is like, if not like a sanctioned museum space, that it's a kind of place you would drop $1,000, like the room in Nope, like Stephen Yeun's character in Nope. It's that kind of room where we are memorializing and making a quick buck off of other person's tragedies.
Correct.
And then you've got the creepy Danish couple who want to spend the night there, or whatever nationality. I apologize to the Danes if I got that wrong.
I think it was Danish.
Yeah.
Could be
and
wrong.
Honestly, if she got it right, then also apologies to the Danes, really.
But I love this bodega, and it's an extended look at what's going to be one of the key scenes in the movie. I do love that New York is just the kind of place where a dude can walk in a head to toe in a serial killer mask, and like the immediate reaction is, hey, what's your problem? And not like, I'm running for the fucking door. It's like, oh, I'm going to step to you, sir, and immediately get stabbed to death. I love that that's the reaction. What do we think of that opening, like 45 seconds or so of the trailer where you get that kind of extended look?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it feels at once very much like a Scream movie, but also very much like a New York movie. Um, and that you're able to strike that balance between the two, like this franchise that has always been a quintessentially California franchise, and that you're able to transport it to New York in a way that feels both effortless and intentional. I think is really fun, but also it gives you an idea that this is not your daddy's ghost face. Like he's really brutal and in a way that we've not seen ghost faces really be up to this point. Like ghost faces have never been this audacious. They've kind of stick to the shadows. They slink around. I've been commenting as my girlfriend and I have been rewatching the franchise. One of the things I love about Ghostface is he's one of the few slashers that takes pratfalls. And this does not strike me as the Ghostface that's going to take pratfalls based on this trailer. Like, you know, he says to Sydney or to Gail, you've not seen a ghost face like me. There's never been a ghost face like me.
This is CrossFit Ghostface.
It is. This honestly feels like the Stab 8 ghost face played by Matthew Lillard in Five Cream. Like the ripped guy with the flamethrower. Like this feels like the physical manifestation of that ghost face in a way. And I'm kind of here for it. Like I love the change of set. I was a little like, okay, Ghostface takes Manhattan now, but like this feels natural. This feels like a different kind of Ghostface, like an East Coast Ghostface, and I'm kind of here for it.
And I love the use of space. Like Scream has always excelled at really tight claustrophobic set pieces, like the recording studio in 2, the house in 1, like all these different, like just you turn a corner, you go through a door. It's these really tight spaces. And I like the way they've translated that to New York with the bodega, with crawling across a ladder to get from one building to the other in this really tight alleyway. I just love that they're continuing that, but kind of not one-upping it, but just saying, see what we can do in a new space and still keep the Scream vibe and give you these amazing, really tense set pieces.
Yeah. Agree with that. You're not, because you think it's New York, it should be pretty easy to get away. It's such a large city. You should be able to escape
Right.
fairly easy. But I think amongst that crowd, you can see how hard it can be to navigate, because when you're in these buildings, there isn't that room to navigate. And that is what struck me watching this, is how, I guess for me, because I'm rewatching all the Rocky movies, how quick and easy it is for like Ghostface to get within that reach. So you can't maneuver, you can't get away. And you almost watch it, you're like, well, it looks like everybody's going to be dead by the end of this. And it's not going to just be one Ghostface by the end of this. Like, I'd be shocked if it's only one killer. Again,
that's only ever happened the one time.
Yeah.
And it was
they could
not
be
a success.
Yeah. And they could obviously be using different audio over different video, because that always happens in trailers. But when Ghostface is talking to Gale on the phone, he's also using both his hands to grab the guy behind her. So I think they're at least wanting us to think that there are two of them from that moment, because it's physically impossible for him to be on the phone at the same time.
Agree.
Right.
And I'm interested, like, what would be, because you're talking about the bodega scene. There's the moment where Jenna Ortega's character, Tara, is kind of like all bloodied up, and it looks like her grip is going to slip and fall. And you have Jasmine Savoy Brown's character of Mindy, like, crawling across that ladder in what was giving me like Cloverfield vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Which of these characters from the new cast are you, because Gail might be a goner, like if they're gonna, this might be the one where like, okay, like this will be the one where Gail is a goner. In terms of the new cast, is there any character that you think is most likely to be offed, and also which one would you least want to see offed?
I think Mindy's brother, the character name escapes me at the moment, I apologize. But
Chad?
Yes. I think he might be one to go. But I don't think Mindy's safe either. There's a part of me that thinks that both Sam and Tara are safe. I would be most upset to see Tara go, just because I'm a huge Jenna Ortega fan, and because of the hell that Tara went through in 5. I never like to see people go through hell just to be killed off in the next movie. So
It
that's
feels
where
cheap.
yeah, it just, that's where I come down on it. I don't want, as you were saying, Stephen, like, I care about these characters so much. I don't want anybody to die, even though that's
Right.
counterintuitive for a slasher movie. But I don't want any of these people to die, but especially not Tara.
Yeah, I mean they killed Randy off in Scream 2. Like, this is a franchise where historically no one really is safe, sadly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I Mindy is the one I would hate to see go. Like, I love Mindy. Like, she was for me the standout character of Five Cream. Like, I loved her so much. Like, I thought she was just such a fun character. Like, she had that kind of the Randy Meeks energy that I'd been missing from the last few entries in the franchise. And so, like, and she brought that in spades, and she was so good. So, but again, it kind of looks like the trailers kind of make it look like she's done, which may be the one solace that I take, and maybe she's not, because the trailers for Scream 5 made it look like all sorts of characters that didn't die were going to die, and it made us think Jenna Ortega was going to die, and she didn't. She's in the new one. Like, so I don't know. I hope Mindy doesn't die, but I think I sadly I agree with you. I think Chad's probably the most likely to go. I don't want to see that either. And that's the thing. The characters that they leave you with at the end of Scream 5 are really solid characters, and I like all of them. And I don't want to see any of them go. Again, I think Sam and Tara are probably the safest bets. Like, if you're going to put money down on two characters that are going to survive, Sam because she is the new Sydney, and Tara because she is, I mean, she's Jenna Ortega. Are you going to kill Jenna Ortega off when she's like reaching her zenith? No, I don't think you will.
I almost feel the opposite. I almost feel like she's the most likely to go, Jenna Ortega's Tara, because she has so many other projects that are probably waiting for her, that she can say, okay, like, they would be a huge blow. It would be a huge shock to have like you one half of your new Sydney's like go in this movie, but also would be like a graceful way for her to do, she probably has 10 other projects that are all lined up
At
for
least,
her,
yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah.
I would hate to see Jasmine Savoy Brown goes Mindy Meeks. I loved that character a lot. And it became very fashionable over the past few years to like knock Randy. The number of like, well, Randy is like toxic now actually takes like was really like, I will defend Randy with my dying breath. And I actually prefer him to Kirby. If you had to give me one or the other, like, give me Randy.
Yes, please.
And I like Kirby. That's no knock on
No,
her character. They're all wonderful.
exactly.
But I'm more of a Randy person. But I don't want to see the new Randy go. Chad probably makes a bit more sense, because aside from having like Hobbs and Shaw as his nickname for his biceps, it's kind of, which is cute and adorable.
Right.
There's not a lot of depth to that character.
Legitimately surprised he lived to see the end of
Yes.
Scream 5,
Yeah.
honestly.
And I know that Kevin Williamson didn't have any involvement in Scream 5 aside from producing, but
right. Which it seems like it was a title only kind of role.
Sure. What struck me in that movie, I think, really honors the legacy of Williamson and Craven's movies. Is like, the thing about Kevin Williamson movies is you feel him rooting for his characters at every page as he's writing for it. Even when he has to kill them off, he's rooting for them to make it, even when and I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just the way I feel about his style of writing. He really loves his characters, and I think that comes across. I think that's what you see in these movies as well. Like, you have some really well-rounded, fleshed out new characters that aren't just cannon fodder for the next Ghostface.
And I think that's the thing that another thing that rubs me wrong about Scream 3 is that so many of those extra characters that aren't our three leads feel like cannon fodder.
Sure. I will say in this house we respect Scream 3. I just want to remind everybody.
I love
that.
Scream 3.
It's just very important. It's very important.
I just think it's the weakest in the franchise. Like I watched it last night. It has grown in my estimation, but I think it's different enough from the other entries in the franchise that it feels very much like an outlier to me.
Sure.
I still love it. It's a great movie. Again, there's not a bad Scream movie. There has yet to be a bad Scream movie.
It's the Jason Goes to Hell of the Scream franchise.
It is.
And listeners, longtime listeners know how much I love Jason Goes to Hell. And you know that it's the movie I lost my virginity to. So fantastic. Shouldn't have thrown that in, but we're recording this last minute, so it won't get edited out. So August 15th, 1993, what's up? Anyway.
Those are important details.
These are important details.
These are very important details.
Okay. Moving on. Jessica, what's your next question about Scream 6? Not
never mind.
Anyway,
I thought you were going to ask me for my date, and I was like, hell if I know.
No,
I don't know how
I'm
you
not
remember
doing that. I'm a gentleman. I would never do that. I want to interject with one stupid thing.
Just one?
Wow. This is my show still, damn it. I downloaded that AI bot historical figures app, and all I've been trying to do is get Alfred Hitchcock to talk about Jimmy Stewart's penis, and he won't do it. And I'm like, I guess that's why they call you the master of suspense, because you won't talk about Jimmy Stewart's wiener. And my response was, laugh. I guess that's why, sir. Very good. So that was my day.
What a great way to spend your day, Mike.
Right?
So anyway, I'm sorry, Jess, your next question.
No, hell of a segue, because I don't have any more questions about Scream 6, though I might have some questions about Hitchcock and Jimmy Stewart's penis and your efforts in that endeavor. But no, that's the end of my notes. I can keep talking about this trailer forever, but I have no more notes on my notepad.
Yeah, I don't have much either. Like, I want to say, that's the only thing I had here was like, obviously the return of Kirby. Not sure what's going on with that wig, but more than that
wig is a choice.
What was really, she looks a bit like the Tiffany doll from Bride of Chucky. And I can't see that as it doesn't seem like an accident. But she also looks like the CGI Peter Cushing and CGI Carrie Fisher. She doesn't look like a real person. Honestly looks like she's airbrushed in somehow. And I'm like, was she not on set? And they just kind of, do you think that Goldbergs, it's the Goldbergs? Is that the show that they kicked Jeff Garlin out of for being a creepy sex pest?
Yep.
And they have that episode where they like literally airbrush or CGI his character, and he looks like Ghost Grandpa. Like, she looks like a hot Jeff Garlin, like airbrushed into the trailer. Am I wrong when you see that? I mean,
not at all. And I love this episode, if for no other reason than the hot Jeff Garlin.
Right.
But no,
first of all, let's not, say that there's not anyone out there who doesn't find Jeff Garlin hot.
No,
okay?
That's fair. Yeah. Totally fair.
As a chubby man myself who, look, aspirations, okay? Mm-hmm. I have to believe that there are women out there who find chubby guys hot.
No, there are. Maybe not sex pests like him, but absolutely. Chubby guys are hot. I will go on the record as saying that right now.
I almost feel bad calling Jeff Garlin a sex pest, because I wonder, obviously the set on the Goldbergs is probably much different from the set on Curb. And I don't think you can run a Curb Your Enthusiasm set as you can a Goldberg set. Does that make sense? You get what I'm saying? Like, they're probably letting a lot more fly, and it's rolling off their shoulders on the Curb set than they are in others. Not that it makes it right, but...
Right, I was going to say the Curb set seems a little more permissive of certain things, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just know that Jeff Garlin's not on that show anymore. I don't know any other details about it, because I'm not so perennially online.
So derailed.
I'm not so perennially online that I know everything going on. It's like I'll mention somebody and they'll be like, "Oh, well, you know what happened with that guy, right?" I'm like, "Oh no." And they'll be like, oh yeah, you should Google it. And I'm like, oh, do I want to? And they're like, probably not, but you should. And I'm like, okay. And that's literally what I'm doing with Jeff Garlin right now.
I feel like I've really derailed this episode. And I
Look, Mike, as you said before so eloquently, this is your show. So.
Listeners, I apologize for nothing. The subway scene, I want to just talk about this really briefly because you have all of these horror icons. So it's either Halloween or they're on their way to some sort of like Fangoria style convention, right? That has to be what it is, like some sort of cosplay, Comic-Con or horror event. I think that like the ghost face you see on that train is a swerve. Because again, you have the two different styles of masks. You have the weathered mask of this look, you see in the bodega, and then here you have that kind of clean, just out of the package, ghost face look. So that to me feels like it's going to be. I don't think that's where Mindy is going to get got, if she does get got. If I'm wrong, I'm going to be kind of bummed out because that would suck to kind of reveal that. But I feel like that's a giant swerve.
The biggest indictment for her not getting got is the fact that we see that in the trailer. Yeah. Like, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do Mindy like that. No, at least I hope not.
Yeah. It does feel like it is kind of fun seeing, and again, it's like that cheeky humor of Scream, like having all these different horror icons on the train all at once. Yeah, that to me is really funny. What did we find? Because you mentioned, Jessica, way back when we were actually trying to do the show justice, and you were keeping us on topic. You mentioned how people were pausing the shrine and like picking it apart like Lost. Did anything jump? I have a few notes here, but what jumped out at you?
Again, I can't take credit for this. I don't know who screenshotted it, but they had the star thing that Sydney's boyfriend was on
from
in
Scream 2.
Yeah. And the fact that Tatum is so front and center, I mean, obviously that's going to stand out anyway because of the neon colors, but it felt like it had more of a place of honor to me. I find something really significant about that.
Stu's girlfriend.
Yeah, I keep going back to Stu. I don't think it's going to happen, but I like that. I like playing with the theory at least.
They had Emma Roberts' costume from the end of Scream 4. Yep. They had Stu's jacket from the end of the first movie, Billy's bloody shirt.
Yep. I had one of the guns.
They had the TV, I think I saw in there too. God, what else? There was also all sorts of stuff from the previous movies.
There was a sketch that I tried to blow up. It was kind of on the left-hand side, and it was kind of like right behind, I think, Jill's outfit from Scream 4. And I couldn't decide if it was like a sketch of Mrs. Loomis or from Scream 2, but that's what it looked like.
I think it was Kirby.
You think that was my second choice? Yeah. Okay. And then I think the only other thing that I had in here where there was like Billy's bloody shirt, one of the clapboards, maybe from one of the Stab movies as well, maybe one from like Stab 3. So, but there's like a lot of fun stuff to pick apart in that alone. And again, it's probably all a bunch of nothing. Okay.
Yeah, I think we can assume that as much as possible in this trailer is a misdirect, which I appreciate. I love doing these shows, but I also hate watching trailers that give things away. So the misdirects, like we mentioned Nope earlier, like the amazing misdirects in that trailer, like I'm a big fan of. So I'm hoping that is the case with this one as well.
I mean, there are trailers that pretty much show you the movie, and they're mostly Marvel trailers.
Also, and I think Invitation.
Right. Yes. How great would that movie have been if you just didn't know it was a vampire movie at all?
Yeah.
Incredible is the answer to that question. But like, no, but again, I don't think I think this franchise is not one that's going to, because it's a whodunit at its core. Like it's a horror franchise, yes, but it's also a whodunit. Like every one of these is a whodunit, and the mystery at the core is who is it this time? And it's always someone it's always someone we care about, which is what makes the reveal so potent of who the killer is. And that I think that's half the fun of going to a Scream movie, is not just trying to not just asking the questions that we've asked, like who do we think is going to eat it? Like, what do we think is going on here? But it's trying to figure out who's behind this. And on a rewatch, is it all going to fit together the way that we want it to? Is it all going to make sense? Are we, people are still dissecting the first Scream movie to see when is it Stu and when is it Billy, right? Like that's the part of this movie that we love. Like people watch Glass Onion and then they go back and watch Glass Onion again because it's a really good whodunit. And all of these movies are whodunits at their core, which is another thing that I love about it, because it's two of my favorite genres, the mystery genre and the horror genre, just mashed together in a way that feels like this should always be the pairing. This should always be the way that it works out. And again, it's another reason why I love this franchise and why I will keep coming back to this franchise as long as they keep making entries. Like I was cautiously optimistic for Scream 5, and Scream 5 kind of made me a believer again. So I'm here for this franchise for as long as they want to keep making it.
I saw Scream 5 in the theaters like 3 times within the first 10 days it was out. Went on my own, took my wife that weekend, and then my wife and I took our daughter the following weekend, because I enjoyed it that much. It's a movie I think it's very easy to return to. Disappointed that Jack Quaid is gone because I loved his character. Kind of called him as the killer when at the hospital he got such a weak slash in the arm. I'm like, okay, that is just enough to injure you, but not enough to put you down. I'm like, that's your killer right there.
It's the Billy Loomis misdirect. Yeah. Well, it can't be him because he got arrested and then they let him go. Like, right?
His delivery of like, oh shit, it's Ghostface is my favorite delivery of any line in any movie of all of 2022.
It's my second most humorous moment of 2022 after Justin Long and the tape measure in Barbarian.
Googling, can you count? Yeah. So
like, yeah, it's my second biggest laugh in a theater in 2022 for sure.
So not to jump too far ahead of ourselves, but Scream 7, what's your next exotic location Scream needs to travel to?
Space. Gotta be space.
Space. You gotta get to 10 before you get to space, don't you?
Yes, please. Let's look. What is this? The Leprechaun franchise? No.
Yeah. Hey, Leprechaun in space. I will defend. Add in a robot.
So
wife
you're the one. Sold. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it won't be on the show.
When are we getting to Leprechaun, Mike?
When I'm dead. When I sell the rights to this show to somebody and let someone, that and Hellraiser will probably be 2 franchises that we just don't get to.
Okay. Well, look, I
sense your disappointment.
I made Brett watch 2 Leprechaun movies last year for Disenfranchised and one of our other Patreon podcasts, Unenfranchised, and I don't think he's forgiven me yet.
No.
I don't think he has. Like, he's still pretty bitter about it. And look, I get it. They're bad movies, but by the same token, it's a horror franchise, man. It exists. And
there are a lot of horror franchises.
You've built your show around. Look, I was amazed the other day when I just searched back through the archives for Pod and Pendulum and found that you've never done The Exorcist.
We'll get to it.
We got to get to that one.
There's an intimidating amount of research to do.
Sure.
There. I mean, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it justice.
Well, I'm a Billy Friedkin super fan. So
okay. We'll get to that. We have some fun stuff coming up. We
really do. I'm excited,
intimidated by how much research I'm going to be needing to do for a couple franchises we do later this year, but get to it.
But that's what sets you apart, Mike, is that you do the research and that you're willing to talk intelligently about these franchises that most people aren't. That's what attracted me to your show in the first place. And then we became friends. And
I would say, well, let's not jump ahead of it. I'm kidding. I love you, Chewy.
Okay, fair enough. All right. It's important to know where I stand. Thank you for clarifying our relationship.
I would say that I've been very lucky to have people come on that speak intelligently, and I talk about creepy sex pest Jeff Garlin. That is my role here.
But I mean,
look
I've
intelligent by
told you
proxy.
before, the way I came to your show was I had just watched the Scream franchise for the very
Oh.
first time, and I wanted to hear someone talk intelligently about it. And I listened to
Mhm.
the first 10 minutes of about 20 different podcasts that were just like, well, this movie's weird, huh? This movie's
Yep.
good. And then I got to you, and it's you and Jerry talking very intelligently about the Scream
Yep.
franchise. And I was like, this is my horror podcast.
I appreciate that.
And
I
all these years
am
later,
blushing.
I'm right
I
here
am
talking to you.
I am
So
blushing right now. So I'm going to stop now because we're blowing. I got really mad at another show that I really love because they were blowing smoke up their cahoots lately, and I'm like, come on, guys, stop this. Do this off air.
all right, sorry.
But
I will. We stop recording. I'll blow all the smoke you want.
I will say that I've been very fortunate between this and psychoanalysis to surround myself with extremely intelligent and funny and fun people to talk to that make me look much smarter than I am. And if you're out there and you do a show or thinking of doing a show, the one piece of advice I'll give everybody is surround yourself with like intelligent, smart, empathetic people, and you will have fun every time you do a show. On that note, I want to see a League of Gentlemen. I want to see like a League of Batman style Scream follow-ups, which is for those, it's Batman Incorporated, I'm sorry, where like basically there is a franchise of Batman, like Bruce Wayne just underwrites it basically, and people still don't figure out he's Batman somehow. He's literally underwriting it. Give me like ghost faces.
You had all the clues
in different cities across the world.
Fuck,
for
I
Scream.
love that.
You know, because think about like all of these friends from Woodsboro are now all in New York. Like, do they all live there? That's weird.
If it's a museum thing, I can see them all going to New York to
go to that museum
to like check it out, see what it's about, right? Because they're victims of this thing. Like, this is their lives that are being basically like the most traumatic moment of their life is being glorified. Maybe they're there to protest. Maybe they're there to see what it's about.
Maybe they're getting paid.
Maybe.
This would be like if someone opened a museum of every woman that's ripped my heart out of my chest. And I'm like, oh, I have to go there and relive this heartbreak.
I would go.
You would go to my museum of my heartbreak.
Yeah.
Would you go to your museum of heartbreak though?
You know what? I'm the kind of person who tends to like relish in like tragedy and depression. So yeah, I probably would, honestly.
So, all right.
And I would just be a sobbing mess in the corner. But you know, that's my trauma. So do with that what you will.
I'm gonna make a prediction that our Scream trailer reveal episode is going to run longer than our Phantasm Oblivion episode.
I'll be on that one too, Mike. I'll see what I can do to stretch that one.
That was a movie. Phantasm Oblivion. That was something we watched. All right.
I'm about halfway through Phantasm 2 right now. So I'm gonna since you're pushing it back, I'm gonna give myself the time to get through the franchise. Yeah.
Excellent. So do we have any final thoughts? I mean, just aside from I'm like fucking jacked and pumped for this movie. I can't wait for it.
I love Scream. Like, again, I'll watch these movies till they stop making them. Like, I bought the 4K steelbooks for the first two films. I'm looking forward to them releasing the others on 4K steelbook so I can buy all of them on 4K steelbook. Like, I love this franchise. It is, again, one of my top 3 favorite horror franchises alongside Gremlins and Evil Dead. So I am 100% here for this movie, for any future Scream installments. Wherever they take the franchise, I'm on board. I will have my fan misgivings and misapprehensions, but I'm still going to be there opening weekend to see this thing. So
same. I have been spoiled on almost all of these films, and I'm going to be there opening night, come hell or high water, so I don't get spoiled on this one. That is my goal, because I love these movies too. I just rewatched Scream 4 for like the 3rd time this year, a night or two ago. I'm obsessed with Scream. I'm looking forward to having an excuse to rewatch all of them in preparation for seeing that shrine or museum or club or whatever it is. And yeah, please, if you spoil me, I swear I'll kill you. That's
Scream
my message.
That would be so Scream. Scream 7 will be like the killer's motivation is people who spoil movies.
The vengeance of Jessica Scott.
I am super excited for it's amazing that it's coming out like about 12, 13 months after
Mhm.
the last one, and it looks solid. I feel like the Radio Silence team really knows what they're doing when it comes to the series. I feel like they've populated it with a lot of performers who I think we all really want to see on screen. And I am always going to be down for another Scream movie. It's my favorite franchise. I love all of them. I think they all have their merits. I was stunned with how much I enjoy. Like Scream 5 left me giddy. It left me like wanting to like run out of the theater to talk about it right away. So
Same.
we will be covering it. Like we'll be covering it within a week of its release.
I
What
demand to be on that
yeah,
episode,
oh,
Mike.
of course, yeah, of course. As my cat runs away, we'll probably be like deep into the purge, or we might even be wrapping up the purge by then. It might even work out time wise where there won't be any gap. So
Nice.
we will just power through that as best we can, and we're going to get to Scream 6 right away on the show. So with regards to where you can find the rest of us, what's going on? Jessica, you have a very busy plate as usual.
Yes.
So you tell us, what are you cooking up right now?
I'm getting ready. Sundance Film Festival has started. My coverage will start very soon. I'll have some reviews with Nightmarish Conjurings, Film Cred, Neon Splatter, hopefully some other places. So a lot of Sundance reviews for me, a lot of horror Sundance reviews. As always, you can find me at Slash Film and my own site, We Who Walk Here. Just put up a review of Skinamarink on there. But yeah, look out for all my Sundance coverage. I'm really excited for all the horror movies that are playing there.
What's one or two titles that you're really looking forward to checking out with your coverage?
Infinity Pool, the Brandon Cronenberg film with Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård. I cannot wait for that. I've got it circled on my calendar. I am very excited for that one.
That sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm. That's my number
you had
one.
Me at Mia Goth.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you had me at Brandon Cronenberg, and then it just kept getting better.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. I think I'm going to try to see Skinamarink this weekend. Like I need to see that movie.
It is so good. It's going to be on Shudder February 2nd if anybody out there doesn't have it playing near them. So
I recommend seeing it in a theater.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
It's funny. I'm like in the middle on that movie. I think that it's very unnerving, and I think sometimes unnerving is better than scary. I love that this movie exists, and I love that there's something so out there. And I love that, like, the screening I went to when the lights came up, I was the only person that liked it. One person yelled out more like "skin a suck," which I thought was hilarious, even if I disagreed.
No, you're not wrong. That is really funny.
But I love that horror fans will, unlike other genres, like at least turn out for something experimental, right? So I am very happy that movie is doing as well, but I'm not sure. I don't know if I could watch it again. And I don't know if I could watch it at home, because I think it would be way too easy to get distracted. I'd have to like literally hide every distraction for it. There's no need for that movie to be an hour and 40 minutes. That's a big beef of mine on movies that like have forward momentum, and a plot and characters you can see on screen. If a movie's an hour 40 minutes, you're testing my patience. Like, go big or go home. I joked with Bloody Good Horror. I'm like, this movie needed to be 4 hours long or a trilogy. Really, that's what it needed to be. But go see it. It's worth seeing.
Either way, I am planning to see it this weekend with the girlfriend. I think she's very excited to see it as well.
I hope y'all like it. I loved it. I liked the runtime, but I agree. Had I watched it at home, I would have been on my phone. Just because that I know myself, I know my ADHD self. That's what I would have been doing, and I'm glad I was not able to do that.
I smell a Patreon episode coming up in February. Steven, where can we find you?
Oh, God, all the normal places. I am the host of the Disenfranchised podcast. You can find us on really anywhere you get your podcasts. It is January, so we are doing our award season spectacular. As of the day we are recording this, we just released our episode on 1994's Best Picture winner, Forrest Gump. Last week we came out with our episode on 1942's Casablanca, and next week we're going to be dropping our episode on 2006's The Departed. So just, Best Picture winners that happen to not kick off franchises, but absolutely could have, is kind of our theme. Next week we're going to do our second Spooky-thon of the last 6 months. We're just going to do a run of horror movies in February, because that seems as good a time as any to do some horror movies. Mike, we're absolutely planning on having you on to do our annual Valentine's Day episode. So that's going to be fun, as it always is. But yeah, you can find us on wherever you get your podcast, Disenfranchised Podcast, on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Facebook at Disenfranchised Pod. You can find me on all the social medias that you can think to look on at Chewy Walrus. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah. The South Korean film that Scorsese remade for The Departed is a franchise. Like, it's a 3-film, and I want to order it. I could not find like a good price Blu-ray box set of
I think it's on Criterion. So if you wait till one of the Criterion flash sales come out, you can get the whole Internal Affairs trilogy on. Yeah,
because it's fucking great. And I love The Departed. I mean, look, I'm a Boston guy. Give me the fucking Departed, Wicked Pissa. Yeah.
Departed,
it's just like,
yeah.
And my Martin Scorsese needs to be protected at all costs. And
Uncle Marty is a treasure, and you're right, he must be protected at all costs. Listen to Uncle Marty, kids.
Yeah. Yes.
He saw Terrifier 2 and said, this is cinema.
I want to get a t-shirt that just says Martin Scorsese was right, and just wear it to every Marvel movie that I see in theaters.
Yes. I don't go to Marvel movies in theaters anymore.
You know what? If I had a Martin Scorsese was right t-shirt, I would go to all of them on opening night.
We just made somebody mad.
You know what? I don't care.
Don't care. I don't care. You can find me roaming the streets of Boston. You can find me online at Mike_Snoonian. You can find me at Letterboxd at Mike Chump Change. Doing a deep dive into Hitchcock this year, so I have like a bunch of lists and thoughts up. My goal is to get through like 30 of his movies when I'm not trying to get him to talk his AI to talk about his dear friend James Stewart's Wang, which my wife came in, she's like, how was your day? And I'm like, I'm trying to get this AI bot of Alfred Hitchcock to talk about Jimmy Stewart's penis. And my wife just looked at me and just walked out of the room and went to go do.
You know what? Your wife, I've never met your wife. She's got to be a saint.
She puts up with a lot. She really does. You can hear my other show, Psychoanalysis, a horror therapy podcast, everywhere you get shows. January was COVID month. So we just posted today our episode on Host with special guests Gina Radcliffe, Terry Menard, and Nicole Goebel, who's also here on this show frequently. February is going to be Bad Romance Month, where we're going to be doing Possession, and Jess, you're going to be on for that. So glad you picked that movie. I don't know how I went almost 48 years not seeing it. I am obsessed with that movie.
I need to see this movie. Everyone on Twitter is talking about Possession. I don't have Shudder, so I have no way of seeing it. Like,
we need to hook you up with
help your boy out, please.
We're going to be covering that. We're going to be covering X as our other topic movie, and then we're going to be talking about my all-time favorite movie, An American Werewolf in London. That'll also fit in the category that month. So weird transitional time for that show right now, as my co-hosts have gone on a bit of a sabbatical. So I am like trying, if I seem a bit manic tonight, it's like all I do is work and podcast and eat carbs at this point. So
I mean, everyone needs a hobby.
Everyone, yes.
And carbs are a hell of a hobby.
Oh my goodness. So what's going on here at the Pod and the Pendulum? So we have 2 episodes left on Phantasm. We have Oblivion and Ravager. And I think those will be fun, because Oblivion is mid 90s as it gets when it comes to a direct to video, and it's fascinating to see that at a time when like the Scream series is taking off. and seeing this old school direct-to-video movie. So it's really going to be fun to talk about that in Ravager. After that, we're diving into the Purge movies. Because I'm like, hey, the Purge 5-disc Blu-ray sets on sale for $20. That's a franchise. And everybody was like, who wants to do this? And everybody was like, fuck yeah. So we're going to be doing The Purge next as our next series. Really happy for that. We'll be covering Scream 6. We'll be covering Evil Dead Rise as one-offs to complete our journey so far on those. Also, like, I really want to get to Jaws this year. Like, that is a series I really want to cover and get those 4 movies. It's by summertime. And I'm trying to make the dates line up so we could get to Saw as a franchise, because Saw 10 comes out this year. It would be a great Halloween episode to do. Halloween drops on a Monday, so we could easily make that our Halloween episode. Longtime listeners know I've only seen the first 2 Saw movies and Jigsaw.
Same.
I own all of them. I've avoided them like the plague because I just don't think they're for me.
Same.
Yeah. But I also like downloads and I like listeners. So
Same.
So, and I know people who love these movies, and I think we could also get like Lindsay to come out of retirement to talk about all of these movies too.
That would be so sweet.
It would be awesome. So
I miss Lindsay. Lindsay, if you're listening, I miss you.
Yeah, she was the best. I hate that she was the best. She's not dead.
She still is the best, Mike.
She still is. Yeah. So, that is it, listeners. I thank you for putting up with us. If you've made it, thank you for putting up with me, because Jessica and Steven are lovely. And
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, Jessica, you're lovely.
No,
I look like me. So, I mean, Mike, if we can go another 8 minutes, we can get 90 minutes on this trailer.
We got trade recipes. So
I've been doing a lot of wonderful things with lentils these days.
Same, actually. Like,
what?
I've been doing so much with chickpeas, it's ridiculous. Anyway,
God, we definitely need to swap recipes then.
All right. I'm not even going to edit, folks. I'm a little secret. None of the show is getting edited. I am literally slapping the intro music on it, the outro music on it, and all the weird uhs and ums and weird little gaps and pauses. Like, you're hearing all of them tonight because we want to get this up quickly, and I should probably go to bed after that. I'm like, do I want to watch a movie? But no, I should probably get some sleep. And then on that note, let's take off. Thanks, listeners. We'll be back in a week with Oblivion.
Mike, I love you.
I love you
the
too,
best.
Steven.
You're the best.
Oh. One day we're going to man hug.
I can't wait.
Bellies.
That will be the best day of my life.
It really
Without
will
question.
be for you. It really will be.
Don't look. I'm not. That's not hyperbole.
My hugs change lives.
I've been told the same about myself. So maybe we'll just mutually have the best day of each other's lives.
Great. Or we'll just like rub buttocks. We'll like back up to one another and
Look, don't tease me.
And again, this all stays in.